Guys, we are back up and running. Talking to Partick today. Core Patrol Superstar. This is going to be a fantastic chat. Warts and all, we're going to get down and dirty and talk about the things that you guys want to know and things I want to know about as well, about what's going on at the moment in the game. And I've got some pretty cool stuff we're going to chat. Partick, hello, mate. It's good to speak to you. It's been a long time. It's been way too long, my friend. Thanks for joining us, dude. Taking some time out.
Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me. It's great to see you.
Mate, it's been great, mate. There's been certainly some interesting bombshells last week. You guys really shook the tree nice and hard, mate. Are you surprised with some of the feedback and things you've gotten up until now? Has it been pretty interesting, or how is it sort of what you expected? I'm curious.
Well, I guess it's about what I expected. I think everything got out maybe a bit quicker than we would have anticipated, but not a huge surprise.
Yeah. No.
Generally, I think been pretty pleased with how the sort of messages we've gotten, how folks have reacted. I think like you mentioned in your Rogue Actions video, I think, Arnold did a nice job describing what we're doing. And I think he, did a nice job focusing on the aspects of why that maybe resonate elsewhere in the community. I mean, this was really primarily something that we wanted to do and we felt like we had to do for us as a guild.
Yep.
But surely, even though we're in sort of an atypical position as a guild in terms of size and where we are comparatively, I think a lot of the underlying factors that brought us to this point are likely things that folks throughout the spectrum of the game must be feeling to a degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about exactly what's happened. Let's recap. Let's roll back to last week. Let's get after that. But before we do that, of course, smack the subscribe button, follow, all that fun stuff. You know what you got to do. Just do it, please. That'd be amazing. Helps grow the channel. All right, got that out the way. Let's get back to the fun stuff. All righty, straight up. Let's talk about it. Let's just do a real quick TLDR. And tell me if I'm wrong, Partick. All right, I'm just going to reel this out to my knowledge from the outside looking in. Tell me if I've stuffed up anything in the information here, okay? Long story short, Core Patrol will not be joining a territory war at all until September. I believe it was the Labor Day weekend was the rough date. You were going to reassess whether anything changes from that. Okay, so that's locked in. And then Chapter 9 Datacrons basically will be optional. No requirement, no, obviously I assume players from a GAC standpoint are probably going to farm them, but there's no particular requirements for the guild itself for requirements for that. Correct?
That's right. And a lot of that just comes from, and we'll talk about this some more, I mean, the effort that members put into Datacron farming during conquests and then, packs and everything else. A lot of that is territory war prep driven.
Yep.
Certainly there's an element of it for GAC, which we obviously, still encourage if folks have fun doing that.
Yep.
But from looking at a territory war scheduling standpoint, as folks may know, at the top of the game, the largest guilds who regularly participate in territory wars, matchmaking is not random. No. It's effectively a rotation of, I forget if it's 11 or 12 matches in a cycle. And so you basically know who you're facing every time. And so when we look at what we're doing here, we go on hiatus until at least early September. And from looking at the Datacron calendar, even if we jump right back in to the territory war gauntlet in September, no disrespect to our guilds, but we only have a couple of matches that are sort of competitive.
Yep.
Most wars are not that competitive for us. And those competitive matches are not going to happen even if we rejoined right away until after said 9 expires. So it's something,
so you've timed it well. So you've timed it well. Yeah.
That they could take a break and skip a set.
So basically any of what we would call the sort of highlight TW matchups, because I mean, again, the schedule, who you faced and when, and you can almost predict down to the letter, win or loss, obviously dependent, any surprises, but you can basically sit down, and I know that there's a spreadsheet running around that'll say, okay, we're going to face that guild, then that guild, then that guild, then that guild, if everything plays out to the win-loss ratio that's expected, depending on the matchup. That we've
Right.
seen that, and that's certainly out there. And yeah, that's the benefit of being at the pointy end. You can certainly plan accordingly for that. Of course, every other guild event is expected. Standard sort of thing, 600 tickets, none of that sort of stuff. So you're not slacking off on the important stuff, of course. And the good old fun crate raid, mate. You're still going to be telling people to get their stuff done there to get those crates. They're
We
certainly
are,
important.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Something I guess I should say that may be known as we, for territory battles, we switched a while back to just letting people auto
Mm,
TB.
yeah.
And especially the weeks that you have TB and Conquest at the same time, it's just a lot in game every day.
Mm.
And so we've been autoing TB for a while, and I think we've just decided that the incremental rewards of just pushing for another star or two just really aren't there.
Not for the
So
stress, not for the work and
yeah,
the workload and the stress involved in pushing at that point. I
yeah.
think that
But
once,
you still have to go in and press auto, do your deployments and whatever. So that's right.
yeah, no, that's fair enough, absolutely. So, all right, let's talk about the hiatus a little bit. Let's get into it now. Obviously, the timing we understand the timing is so that you're really you're still going to match up against those big event guilds, those event wars that are really important to all of them at the pointy end. Of course, I'm in one of those guilds. We face you from time to time. It's a really fun challenge. Yeah, one day, we might have a good day at the office, but that's a whole different conversation. But let's talk about the reason that why it's necessary, and is it something that, I mean, a lot of people are wondering, well, why now? Is this something that you've been talking about for some time? Is it just a case of, what, over the last few weeks it's really become to the point that something needs to be done, or is it something that has been really discussed, over a while? I'm curious to know that personally.
Yeah. So the sort of snowball building to where we are now is really more than a year in the making. I would say we've started to feel the pressure of in-game time, how every new thing is additive. Just the amount of, I think, what Arnold called low effort or low effort time in the game
Hmm.
has just been increasing and increasing. And I think some of these conversations, or at least the seeds of where we are now, really began with the announcement of Datacrons. So I
Yep.
mean, we're really going back about a year or so whenever Datacrons launched, and all of the time sucks from TB to Conquest to just doing your daily activities to folks who are really serious about GAC. That's many potential hours of prep and attack when GAC is going on, and so something had to give. Like you need a pressure valve. Most folks in our guild, especially, we have jobs, we have families,
Yep.
can't just sit around on our phones all day.
Yep.
You know, doing Datacron farming or like autoing conquest or whatever. And so we had to look at where is the biggest sort of single source of relief. And for us, it's territory wars. It's
Yeah.
the most time is spent on both an officer and member level doing prep,
Yep.
farming Datacrons, mod tweaks, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And then attack phase on its own. For officers, that's commonly we're pulling like 18+ hour shifts. We have an international guild, lots of players from Europe, from Japan, Southeast Asia. We have lots of time zones to manage, 50 teams a zone.
Yep.
It's just a lot.
Yeah.
And where we ultimately came to, it's a hard decision because territory wars for us far and away is the biggest resource drain and time drain, but it's also the most fun too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's conflicting in a lot of ways, but where we see ultimately over time is the scale gradually shifting when you try to balance the amount of effort that goes in versus what you get out of it. And I think we just came to a point where we saw, both for officers and for members, that the scale had really started tipping in the wrong direction. And as guild leaders and our broader officer corps, it's our job to identify instances where the guild collectively wants to move in a certain direction, but everyone's sense of loyalty to each other and desire to compete at the highest levels of the game prevents any one person from really, you know, providing the spark.
Yeah.
And so we have to recognize that the moment is here, and that we have broad support for doing what we're doing,
Yeah.
and take the initiative.
Yeah. No,
And so, yeah, I mean, this is something that's been building for a year. I mean, you may know, some folks may know, we sort of dipped our toe in the water with this a bit last summer, where we sort of said we're going to take our foot off the gas a bit in territory war.
mhm.
You know, a lot of our matches are ones we know we're going to win as long as we show up, but even those are very involved. You know, a lot of guilds will just sort of set all their GLs because they don't want to deal with us or
Yeah.
whatever. And so, like, even like what you would call easy wins or big time commitments.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, what we found there is there was some respite from trying to just excuse me, pick and choose where we really spend time.
Yep.
But it's really against our nature as a community to not, once we're doing something, to not give it all.
Yeah, that's right. It's all or nothing. At that level, it's
Excuse me.
certainly when you're playing at the pointy end, there is that expectation of high performance. I mean, that just goes without saying. There's no way around that. It's just you turn up, you know, you fight, you kill stuff, you go hard, you give it everything you've got, and it is training over a long period of time. There is no doubt. I mean, you know, certainly, you know, at the top end, it's very, very challenging. And I mean, you have officers, and we'll talk about that in a second, but I mean, you've got officers that basically will stay up for the length of the attack day phase, virtually, like the whole 24 hours. It's very, they might get a couple of hours here and there, not too much, but it gets to the point that it can be that intensive against some of those big battles that you know, you have guys staying up all night because, you know, that can be the difference between winning and losing it, which is just crazy when you think about it. But that's how you know, intense it gets. The intensity's there.
It's very close, and you're definitely right. And you know, I don't know if this makes our jobs easier or harder, but I mean, one thing we do not do is like we on stream battles. You know, we don't have sort of a extensive like login sharing where you'll have sort of officers doing a bunch of battles for people.
Mhm.
So that makes it incumbent on the membership to be there.
Yeah.
To take their time to like read the instructions for a given battle and then to execute.
Yeah. And that's hard enough on a weekday. I mean, that's the thing, you know, that's the trick. Obviously on weekends, you know, on the Sunday, you've got, you know, a little bit more time, but then of course you got to deal with time zones as well. That's a whole different conversation, that particular one. So yeah, certainly it is a bit tricky, but let's dive into, you know, boots on the ground. And what I mean by that is, of course, since the announcement's been made, internally, as far as the officers and the members, like what's the reaction been now that it's out there? Have there been a few people that have gone, oh, I'm not happy about this, but I'll do it because my leadership says we're going to do this? Or has it been, hey, everyone's on board, full ticks, 100% unanimous? Like what has been the reaction now that it's public? It's been kind of almost, you know, half a week or just almost quite a week at the time of recording this. So has there been any change in the attitude since the actual announcement's been made internally from anyone? Or has it been, no, we're all happy with what we see, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think for all of us, we have mixed feelings. I mean, because we all enjoy territory wars. It's what our guild has been, you know, very good at. It's what we pride ourselves on for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not without reservations for any of us that we go down this path. But, you know, our guild has always been, I think, prideful about taking suggestions from everywhere, you know, theory crafting from anywhere. Like anyone, members 1 to 50 can make a contribution and do make contributions. We don't, you know, things are not like handed down from on high.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is true for decisions like these. I mean, we as officers and as leaders talked about this at length over several months when it started to look like we thought it made sense to go in this direction. We had lots of conversations at the member level as well to see how people would feel and react to it.
Yeah.
And so I think as a guild, I think it's been pretty steady, and folks sort of understand why we're doing what we're doing. And I think, you know, again, for a lot of people, this is something they wanted but didn't feel comfortable or felt like they would be letting the guild down by trying to push forward individually. Like no one wants to be the one to make the first move to say we need a break.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah.
so it's kind of, that's again like kind of puts it on us as leadership to say we can take the temperature of the guild and know that this is where people are at, and we just have to make the call.
Yeah.
And I think it may be the case, like we may obviously have some folks who just look, if territory war is your only reason for playing, then this may not be for them. And we're a community, not a prison. Like
Yeah, of
people,
course. Yeah.
we want people to have fun. This is a game. Like we're not, there's all the rewards in this game are illusory. Like there's no real prize. It's all just, are you in a peer group that you have fun playing with? Does the game itself make you happy? Does your community make you happy? And so, we hope, and I think will be proven out that that's, where our guild by and large is at.
Yeah.
But we just, like I said, we're just trying to do the best thing to
absolutely
ensure the long-term, health of our membership.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that being said, of course, as you said, some players, of course, hardcore territory war players. So what happens with that? Obviously, that some of them just may not want to sit on the sidelines for 3 months, or whatever it is. So will you give them opportunities to maybe play territory war in another guild? Like, is it, no, hey, look, you're one of ours, you can't move, you're locked in? Or are you going to say, you know what? You want to scoot off and go and have some fun somewhere and come back after the war's done? By all means. Like, what's your opinion on that? Or has there even been an instruction internally regarding something like that yet?
Yeah, and so the short answer is we have not, our announcement doesn't set any rules about this. We haven't said anything internally about, we don't have like a sort of formal anything about this. I mean, again, our hope and our expectation from all the conversations we had leading to this point is that we knew generally that our core was on board with what we're doing.
Yep.
Despite all of our reservations, this isn't, you're giving up something, but you're also gaining something.
Yeah.
Like I said, if it turns out to be the case that, there may be some in the membership who would, try to make it work, but it's just, missing that is just too much. Then obviously we want folks to be happy, and we if they need to find a place to play, we wish them well. Obviously we hope that would still be in our alliance, but we'll, support people however they want to be. And if we return to the gauntlet, and we have a couple of folks who moved on and they want to come back, then, we're no hard feelings. We'll sort of look at that at the time, but I don't think we're going to put any rules in place. I mean, again, like we're all adults. It's a game.
Yeah.
We're trying not to overly circumscribe anything for anyone.
Yeah, again, I was just curious again, what the sort of plan of attack was, because I know that there's a lot of players that, as you said, can't afford to lose any rewards, or obviously they just require them to be competitive, in the game themselves, at whatever level. So, certainly it's going to be a bit of a shock for some. If it's not caught them by surprise, but it's like, okay, well, now I need to make this work. I need to work even harder to make sure that I don't fall further behind, and missing out on the goals that we need. And of course, you've obviously gone through, mathematically a system where it's not going to impact too much.
Right. I mean, there's definitely the perception of it, and I think some of that is a bit part and parcel of the broader like addiction loop that CG creates with, when you're sort of on the hamster wheel. It's like any potential lost resource is something you feel like you can never get back. But I think like we go into a bit of detail in the announcement. I mean, that's really not the case. And particularly when you think about the trade-offs of not having this huge resource drain. You're not gaining something, but you're also taking away, at least for a while, your biggest incentive to commit scarce resources. And so things like, if you're not doing all the extra conquest refreshes to farm all these additional datacrons, well, that's crystals that you can use to buy droid brains, for example. And like we outlined, I think Arnold showed that. I mean, as one example, ways that you can really mostly, if not completely, offset a lot of the lost rewards. So I think that's something that, just as a matter of math and efficient farming strategy, is something that can be overcome. We'll obviously continue to work to help members with that because, of
Yeah.
course, we obviously we have a lot of big spenders in our guild, no denying that.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
spending has never been a requirement for us.
No. But it just happens.
But I will say it does happen, and I think we have as officers and leaders conflicting feelings about that because a lot of what sort of CG weaponizes, if you want to call it that, is like our community, our guild's loyalty to each other, and like
Yes.
you're trying to be a light spender, you're trying to conserve resources, and you see a bunch of other people like, oh my God, look at those cron stats, or look at how many people are unlocking the new marquee or whatever, and then
Yeah.
you feel the spending pressure,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
like I feel like we have a responsibility to push back against that a bit and remind people that they can make their own decisions. Like we have to fight that FOMO that CG really feeds off of.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. Spot on. Sorry, we had a bit of a window issue, guys, on the video feed. My apologies on that one. Can't take me anyway. But it's all sorted now. Look, you mentioned CG. Let's talk CG. Let's go down that path. That slippery slope. Now, a lot of this, of course, is to make a statement. I mean, let's call it what it is. That's what it's all about. It's like, okay, we're finding this game really, really difficult at the moment, workload-wise, resource-wise. Our officers are really struggling at the moment, with managing time and trying to get some sleep during some of these events. It's pretty rough. And I mean, it's all about sending a clear message, I assume, obviously, as far as, hey, look, the community, there's, the rope's really, really stretched quite thin right now. I mean, that's where I feel it's at anyway, and I've got my own opinions on that. You know that. This is nothing new. I think that certainly there are issues with this game that really, it's like having a second job in some cases. And is that ideal? Absolutely not. So this is, I assume, a catalyst, and certainly it's a bit of a call to arms, I feel, to say, hey, guys, something's got to change. This is not sustainable long term. That's how I feel, and tell me if I'm wrong, Partick, if that's not the aim of this particular hiatus as well. It's like, okay, something's got to give. This is the best way we feel that we can communicate that something needs to happen, and this is the action that we're taking because of that. Would that be correct, or am I missing anything there?
So I think I agree with all the sentiment you're expressing. I mean, I will say the goal of this was always about doing what we thought was best for our group of 50 players.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we did not, publicize the announcement of what we're doing, obviously we knew it would get out eventually. But I mean, at the time we were sort of preparing this and making this decision, there was not discussion about any sort of public attempt to mobilize anything. I think Arnold was correct in saying, like, this is not like a set of demands or anything like that. Certainly, there's some hope that the studio would notice, and I think some of that would just occur naturally with us not being in the territory war rotation, because I think folks in your alliance, I'm sure, will notice, and I've talked about this with the mall leaders too, like, it's no accident that before we have our Mall Wars packs drop, new marquees drop, like there's always, it seems, like spending gates that come before these spots in the rotation. And us not being there, just inherently is going to reduce at least our spending. And I mean, maybe it doesn't, but it could reduce others' perceived spending to prepare to do battle with us.
I think you're underselling that. I actually think, this sort of action, make no mistake, from one of the top guilds in the game, make no mistake, if not the, like, I mean, it's, you and more Chromium are having a ball up top, right? Straight up. Let's be honest. Let's call it what it is. But I think you're underselling that. I think that this is a huge impact. I think it's a huge statement. It really is. When you've got a guild to this scale that has spent upwards of, triple figures, like it's, huge amounts of money, like 6-figure numbers, like huge amounts of cash. Let's not sugarcoat it. We know that, there are players that have been outwardly saying how much they've spent in this game. There's no point hiding that. For these guys to come out and say, hey, look, we're sick of the way things are right now and something needs to change, that's enormous. And obviously starting at the top, I feel that resonant, that will filter through. That is seen. It is out there. It's not only a few people noticing. This is enormous in my opinion, I think that you're probably
Yeah,
underselling that, honestly.
and like we said earlier, I mean, my hope was that aspects of why we're doing what we're doing would resonate sort of with folks at all levels of the game who are feeling the time crunch.
Hmm.
You know, you never know when stuff gets out how it's going to go, because there's also a lot of, I think, sentiment of like, oh, boo hoo, the folks who are spending all this money, like, why should we care what they think?
Hmm.
And that's totally fair too. Like, I can totally get that sentiment. I mean, this game has never been more pay to win or pay to progress.
Yeah.
And again, like, as officers and leaders, like, we feel strongly that we have a duty to try to break and pull people off the hamster wheel of just because other folks in the guild, other folks in the alliance, our rivals are doing something.
Yeah.
We do not need to play catch up. We do not need to try to keep pace. We need to do what we feel we're comfortable with, what makes us happy, what is constructive and additive to our enjoyment of the game.
Yeah.
And anything else we need to try to resist.
Yeah, yeah. This is bigger than just an individual guild. It's just, certainly, the spark, could be a spark to certainly some change. Now, I don't even know if you can talk about this. I don't even know if you can mention anything or not, right? Straight up. Are you aware of any communication? Have CG come out yet? I mean, they know. They can see this stuff. I mean, they're not, they haven't got their head in the sand. They can see it. Just sometimes they may not decide to, notice it, but they see it. Now,
Yeah,
has there been any sort of contact yet? Has there been any type of response? Has there been any outreach? Anything at all since the announcement last week? From what you know, I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I think I watched your Rogue Actions video before we started, and you had mentioned that your impression that there's at least awareness of this, and that is, I agree. Like, I also have an understanding of that.
Mm.
Anything more than that, I think time will tell. I don't want to, I want to keep any possible avenues of constructive dialogue
Yep.
open.
Yep.
So I hope, we all love this game.
Yeah.
We spent so much time on it, and we want its long-term health to be as good as possible, to have as much prognosis for our continued involvement.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a larger community as possible. And so if there's anything we can offer, any sort of feedback, takeaways from where we're at, then
Yep.
we would be happy to participate in that kind of a dialogue.
Yeah, no, that works. I had to try Partick. I couldn't help myself, mate. I had to ask. It had to be done. I'm sorry. I kind of knew that I might go down that channel, but if I don't ask, you never know. Straight up. Hopefully they do answer. Hopefully you get more response. I'd like to see some open communication. I think that, I think that we all would want to see that. Regardless of what guild you're in, we all still play this game. We all love it. We want it to be as good as it can be. And, certainly I don't know what you've got to do to get some sort of an answer. I mean, this is, again, a big, big statement. So, do you think it's just going to be a core patrol thing? Do you think it'll just be, are you expecting, or have you heard, is there been any feedback from other alliances or communities? I mean, the community structure in this game is something that I've never seen before, like in any game ever. It's one of a kind. It really, really is. And the good thing is that the communication is there between alliances, all over the place, globally. Now, have you heard or seen anyone, seeing what you're proposing? Have they, thought, what, this could be a good fit for us as well? Or, has it been the call to arms maybe that you thought it might be? Or is it a, hey, we're going it alone? Like, I'm curious what your thoughts are on that,
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell. I have not, personally, I haven't seen anyone else sort of specifically go down the same path. I've seen, I'm heartened by supportive comments that I've seen in at least like Arnold's video, and I haven't looked at the comments in your video yet, but hopefully also there. I mean, it's just like it's a big ask for us to do this. It's probably an even bigger ask for others who are our rivals to join us.
Yep.
I think it's very hard, like I said, to break the addiction loop and to not see this as just a competitive opportunity. I mean,
Yeah.
we have there's been a lot of poaching efforts in the last couple of days from guilds who were like, oh hey, I heard that you guys are maybe taking a break from territory wars. We're not, and without your guild there, we're probably going to win more. I
Mm.
mean, so I can't blame, like, recruiting is tough at any level. So like I don't blame folks for trying.
Yeah.
But I guess that gives me some indication that maybe others who might be in a position to join us and magnify the impact of what we're doing are maybe not having the sort of out of body, off the hamster wheel experience that we feel like we've gained some perspective on. But you
Yep.
never know. I mean, I figured, I thought, saw Arnold read in his video something that we put in the announcement, which was, I thought folks would probably react harshly to, which was,
Mm.
I think we said that like the territory war gauntlet kind of revolves around us or other guilds' obsession with beating us. I mean, I think with Truth Serum, that's just true. Since we formed in 2019, and so I think it's hard to step out of that, but I hope, if what happens if it gets into July or August, and sort of we as sort of the carrot are not there for our
Yeah.
rival guilds. Like,
Yeah.
how fun is it to just stomp on everyone else, but I'd be doing 18-hour shifts doing it.
Yeah, that's right.
I feel like from our perspective, we feel like, we'll have our up and down periods just like our rival guilds will, and we feel like we don't have anything to prove. And so if we take some time off because we need it, then fine. And I think others could certainly feel the same. Whether they take the step we've taken, I guess remains to be seen. I would welcome it. I'm not optimistic though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just see that, it's just the fear of the guild leader or more Vanguard, mate. Your boy over here, you're just shaking in your boots a bit. So it makes sense. Take some time off. I'm kidding. I'm being silly. It's a joke. I'm being a clown. Never mind me, mate.
I got you.
We've been way too serious for a while, mate. We had to lighten things up a bit. All right. Okay, now a lot of the conversation, of course, with the hiatus revolves around territory war. That's what it's based around, okay? That's what the hiatus is about. So obviously, territory war, you guys are hardcore territory war, just like many other guilds out there. That's certainly the main focus to certainly the actions that you're taking. So my question to you is, what's it going to take? Like, what's it going to take to change? Obviously, territory war, is it something within territory war? If we're just talking about that, is there something that you would like to change that would certainly make it, less of a burden than it currently is? Or is it just a bigger issue overall? Like, I'm curious to see if, changes to territory war would satisfy you guys enough, or whether it's still a bigger issue than that,
It's a good question. I mean, I think in a vacuum, it's hard to say. We certainly have not, again, drawn up like any sort of list of demands or anything like that. I think it's hard in a vacuum to conceptualize of what improvements to the game mode might be that would sort of sufficiently ease the crunch that we're feeling.
Yep.
I do think we made an attempt in our announcement to at least outline what we see are the problems. I
Yep.
think expanding to 50 teams, maintaining a 24-hour attack phase is just, and there are arguments, if you shrink the attack phase, that creates other problems, of course, because then it's just like a mad dash.
Yes.
You extend the attack phase. I'm not sure that in some ways eases the needing to be on constantly, but it also means you're doing territory war attack for even longer. And that's still a perpetual time commitment. And
Yeah.
so, the outsized role that datacrons play, a lot of, for our most competitive wars, like we're literally, creating Google Docs and like putting datacron information into the Google Docs to like manually match people up
Yeah.
for battles based on datacron stats. And
Yeah.
that just the amount, I mean, that's like separate and apart from figuring out what the counter is and like what how to how to write up the instructions so that something that's easy for members to execute, and what all the nuances are based on the different datacron stats and all that. I mean, it's just
Yeah. Each battle's
the
just more tailor-made.
introduction of that
Yeah.
element
Yeah.
creates so much more like busy time during the attack phase that you're really never just like watching the board. Like there's always work to do that requires a team.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
so it's just, and then for members again, that's like they just always have to be available to
Yeah.
say, oh, we're gonna knock this wall down. Now we need everyone here to like do this other attack so we can get to fleet or whatever. I mean, it's always something.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And so it's just the existing, this is a very old game mode that just hasn't adapted to the way that all of the different progression steps have been introduced.
Yeah.
Relics, mods, crons, all this stuff.
Yeah. No, definitely. The game's
So
moved on.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure what the short list of changes would be. Like, we'd welcome a conversation about that. I'm sure the community at large has good ideas on that.
Yep.
Because I think the other thing from CG standpoint is that I don't think territory war participation in the game overall is very good. Like, I just don't think it's something that most guilds don't really participate, or if they do, it's kind of like a YOLO thing where you're like, all right, set some defense, do some battles or whatever. It's really like 6 guilds that like set like an intentional defense and then like define attacks and issue instructions and like
Yeah.
manage it the way that
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
But that also drives so much of the spending.
Yeah, it's just
that
military
like,
precision.
yeah,
It's military precision. It really is for a game
yeah,
over the space of 24 hours. It just gets to that point. I mean, I've played at that level. We play at that level. You
yeah,
don't need to explain it to me. Definitely, it's really quite draining. There's no other word for it.
right.
Mentally, you're exhausted. You really
Yeah,
are
and
after
I
a
think,
war.
and all that is to say, like from CG standpoint, it's not just about how you improve the game mode so that folks at our level want to recommit to it,
Hmm.
but also how do you improve the game mode so that you are encouraging much broader participation.
Yeah,
And it's
understood.
not
Yeah,
a thing that like most guilds just don't care about.
yeah,
I mean, that's a real, you know, lock that needs a key is like, how do you get broader game time, much more intention and participation from guilds who are not in the gauntlet in in the top 12.
yeah. Well, that's what they need to work that out. I mean, that's why they
Right.
get the big bucks, right? They make the game, they design it, and certainly, that's a puzzle piece that they need. It's a challenge for them to make work. Definitely. But last question, mate. We're almost done here. I'll almost let you off the hook. Won't be much longer. Thank you so much for joining us for so long, by the way.
Yeah,
But
of course.
but yeah, okay. Let's get our crystal ball out, Partick. Let's get our crystal ball out and say, okay, we're going to be sitting here. We're in September now. We're at Labor Day weekend. Is the hiatus still on, in your opinion? Do you think that we're going to see you guys still taking the hiatus in territory war, or are you seeing some sort of changes that the hiatus is no longer required by then? That's the interesting one. I want to get the crystal ball out and get your opinion on where we're going to be in September when it comes to Core Patrol.
So, I mean, I think we, like I said, we tried this sort of half measure last year where we didn't really commit to just taking a break and we tried to ease up, and that really just didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately ended up in just sort of fewer people doing more work, which I think created some other issues.
Yep.
So, I mean, we have every intention of sticking to the timeline we set
Mm-hmm.
for reevaluation.
Yep.
Now, never say never. I mean, if you're going to tell me that there's going to be some major changes that sort of fundamentally alter the territory war dynamic
Mm-hmm.
that come out in July or August,
Mm-hmm.
then obviously that would be great for us to take a look at, and see where our membership is at, and if that's something that folks really feel strongly about, we're not going to be inflexible.
Mm-hmm.
But it is for as long as things continue to roughly go the way they're going, then we'll continue to do what we're doing.
Fair enough. Good answer. Good answer, mate. That's absolutely Fantastic. So, no, look, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out between now and then. Thank you so much, mate, for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. It's been a really, really great chat. It's certainly a big thing in this game. It really is. When you've got, some of the biggest players in the game, size-wise, deciding, you know what, they don't want to play game mode anymore and they need a break. Mate, there's something wrong. I mean, there really is. So hopefully, certainly that drives some sort of positivity change. Communication, which, it's been lacking a little bit recently as well, I feel. But that's my own personal opinion for another video. It's been great to have you join us, mate, to get your side of the fence. And it's great, obviously, I'm in a different alliance, mate. And even just, chatting with you, we love this game. Alliances don't matter when it comes to this sort of issue and these conversations. It's just broader than that. And for that, mate,
absolutely, totally agree. I mean, I think most of us love this game and play it in large part, if not majority sense, for the community that we have more than the actual like pressing buttons.
Correct.
And that, obviously our guild communities come first and foremost in priority, but it's also true that like the broader community at large, especially at the end game, is a special one, and
it is.
That goes beyond rivalry. I think we all have a lot of sort of kinship and mutual respect, I would hope, and I think there are a lot of things that are bigger than a territory war rivalry.
Correct.
And I think that's hopefully we that can continue. And again, what this is all about is we all want this community to continue and to stay strong, and
we do,
and to not shrink as it seems like it has been.
It has. Yeah, look, everyone's noticed it. I mean, make no mistake. I think, the writing's on the wall. I mean, Blind Freddy knows that certainly there's been, attrition across the board. There's no doubt about that. Take it or leave it. We don't get the figures, but we don't need them. We know our friends have been, retiring, our friends that we've been playing this game as long as we have, for 7 years. And they're just going, you know what, enough's enough. So there's an inherent problem. Hopefully we get some sort of a solution at some point down the track. So thanks so much for joining us. It's been great. We're going to wind this one up now. Maybe I'd love to chat to you just about the state of the game at some point down the track, Partick, when we can. It's been a really, really cool conversation, mate. So we'd love to catch up later on. Maybe in September we'll catch up in 3 months and we'll just say, hey, look, what's changed? Anything's changed, and we'll do a follow-up maybe. That'd be really fantastic.
Like
so we'll see you then, guys. Hit the follow button, thumbs up, all the fun stuff. Pop your comments in. We want all your comments with what you've heard here. Is there anything you like, you don't like, anything that you want elaborated, or are you satisfied? You're going to hop on board? Let us know what you guys think. We'd love to hear from you all. Thanks so much, guys. See you on the next video. Have fun. Bye.